This is Analog Spectrum. Some things need to be said, but not by these guys.
All right, hello everybody. This is Tony of Analog Spectrum.
And I'm Doug.
It's good to be with you today. We're kind of picking up where we left off.
What are you, Mr. Rogers? Where's this coming from?
All right, let's start again. Ready?
No, yeah, just keep it going.
No, we're gonna do it again.
Yeah, you got a lovely audience. Thank you.
So
Thank you very
I don't know.
much.
I'm distracted.
Okay.
Well, let's spin this up.
We're leaving that episode number 8. Yeah. The one with the creepy intro.
I think I'm going to leave that shit.
We're
It's too funny.
we're totally leaving it.
All right. Yeah. So this is Tony.
Yeah, that's better. And I'm Doug.
Hi. And today we're going to talk about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Just to kind of explain when we were originally setting up these podcasts, talking about putting them together. And one thing that Doug and I like to do is share movies or films, TV shows, whatever, and we hand it off and say, hey, don't watch the trailer, don't do any research, just watch it, see what you think, and then when we get back together again, we'll discuss. And while you know that we're kind of sort of doing that with a few of these things, we did it with Maverick, which was our first podcast. Admittedly, this is a little bit of an older movie, but we were kind of doing the same thing.
But so to be fair here, I had not seen very many trailers for this at all.
Okay.
So I didn't know much about it before I started watching it.
So just some background, and I know this goes without saying. This movie was originally produced or released in 2019, and I know this goes again without saying, but spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, we're going to talk about it. Okay. Yep. So we're going to dig into it a little bit. You've been warned.
Yeah.
Doug and I both are big fans of Quentin Tarantino. And we, matter of fact, probably one of the things, of many things that we kind of bonded over originally was Reservoir Dogs, because I would say in the late 80s and early 90s was kind of a heyday of independent film where lots of people were releasing things that...
Yeah, they even came out with their own channel, right? That's where IFC came from.
Yeah. And regrettably, that's kind of gone away. Yeah. But Reservoir Dogs was one of the first movies that probably it wasn't. We didn't think it through like we do now. But I think I gave it to Doug, saying, "Hey, you need to check this out."
Yeah, no doubt.
And we got back together after he'd watched it. And he was like, dude, what the hell was that? And that was like the Jello was starting to form now. So anyway, so Tarantino obviously is a very individual, unique individual in Hollywood. We live in a world. Obviously, we all have our opinions on this, but it's a corporate Hollywood right now. Everything's about the Marvel universe and kind of cookbook. Recipe to make a good movie. There's very few independent properties.
Can I jump in right there?
Of course.
I think Hollywood's always been that way. I really do. Yeah. And this is one of the things that makes some of these older movies really good. Right. Is because Hollywood was always that way, but they still produced good films. And nowadays, there's elements missing. I think big parts of that is the talent of the actors and actresses. I mean, talent. I mean, I sound like an old fart now, but the old back in the old days. These people could sing, they could dance, they could act, they did a multitude of things, and now they're just a bunch of prima donnas that are overpaid. With the exception of a few, obviously.
Right. There's still a few movie stars out there.
Yeah.
But I would add to that I will think that Hollywood clearly was always interested in the profit margin. Yeah, they always wanted to make money, right? But now, for lots of different reasons, Hollywood today is what it is. Sure, people like fast food. People like garbage. People will eat what you serve them when it comes to Hollywood. I like the Avengers. I went and saw it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Iron Man. It was just swell. Okay, but
it was swell.
But with that said, there are movies, that two things that have come out like I think in one of the earlier podcasts I talk about the Star Wars, and I feel the same way a lot of the critics of the newer Star Wars movies feel, especially The Last Jedi, and that they. They were like, well, we're going to subvert expectations. Well, you can't subvert expectations just for the sake of subverting expectations.
Yeah.
A matter of fact, I would even say the movie we're going to talk about today clearly subverts expectations. That's that's one thing that Tarantino did. But in my opinion, not to put the cart before the horse, he did it in a way where I'm like, I can respect what he did, But what Rian Johnson did with Star Wars and the second Star Wars movie of the sequels, it just left a really bad taste in my mouth. But anyway, I think what drives Hollywood nowadays is something that they didn't have back, when this movie took
40s,
place. Yeah, was you got these algorithmic equations where they can look and say, okay, well, the 18 to 29 demographic, living in the Midwest, blah, blah, blah. They like it when you do this. And also there is kind of this drive to inject certain things in the movies where you're like, I don't know if this makes the movie any better, but it seems like they're trying to basically, again, there's this checklist that they're trying to accomplish.
Well, I remember that from the 80s, right? There was movies like, okay, you had to have a black guy, you had to have a female character,
right?
You had to have a white teenager, whatever, you know what I mean? So
right.
that like this is it. You have to have these, and then everything sort of revolved around how do we make that work, rather than let's get the best story or whatever we can, and then find the best actors or actresses.
I think we're seeing that. We're definitely seeing that now.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of that, and we're also seeing the repercussions of that being kind of shoved down our throat for 20 or 30 years.
But and it does sell to a certain extent. Not always. Not always.
Mm-hmm. No, true. But the other thing to remember, though, it's like the world market is who they're making movies for.
Right.
And boy, there's big money. Dangerous
money, though.
Yeah.
It is
true.
Well, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was not released in China.
Yeah.
Because Tarantino would not change the Bruce Lee scene.
Okay.
So he was like, I'm not going to do that. They were like, you need to delete the Bruce Lee scene in this movie. And he's like, I will not. Mm-hmm. So and Tarantino has done things that I do not respect, and he's done things that I respect. I respect that. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're as always.
Yeah, way off topic. Okay, back to the movie.
Because clearly I'm passionate about this, but Tarantino, he's often said that he's going to do 10 movies and retire. Mm-hmm. I'm not too sure if Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is number 9 or number 10. The movies, and he's touched a lot of films. Mm-hmm. Like he wrote True Lies. Mm-hmm. He wrote Natural Born Killers, I think. Mm-hmm. And he's done like these like what was it, like that 4 Rooms, I can't remember, but he's done like
did one of the 4.
Yeah, one of the 4, but I don't think those count. But if you really look at his core movies, you have Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2, and I don't know if that's considered to be 1 movie or 2 movies. Death Proof, which again I don't know if that's considered part of a anthology or a standalone. Inglourious Bastards, Django Unchained, Hateful Eight, and then Once Upon a Time. So Once Upon a Time, 2019. Before that, Hateful Eight was before that. So
okay, I'm gonna diverge again real quick.
Certainly.
Inglourious Bastards. I don't remember the actor's name, but that scene where the Germans are searching the house.
Christoph Waltz.
Yeah. Okay. Holy crap. That was one of the coolest scenes in movies ever.
And you'll never see a scene like that in the Avengers movies.
Yeah. I mean, that was unbelievably good.
And I want to be clear, I'm not beating up on the Avengers movies. I'm just saying that you have that.
Avengers suck.
It doesn't suck.
Marvel Universe collapsed. It sucks.
It's...
Just saying. Hey, you remember that? Remember that conversation we had about the police? I'm just saying. Okay, anyways.
You can beat up on the Avengers if you want. I'm just saying. I really haven't done much with Phase 4 with the Avengers, or whatever the Marvel Universe, but I thought all the stuff leading up to it was just fine. It was fine. Some of it was great.
Yeah. Here we go. Okay. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. How about that?
Oh wait. Okay. So. Doug's been doing shots of vodka since 7 o'clock this morning. Yeah. No,
and it's only 8.
He doesn't even drink. So
and it's only 8. Yeah.
But again, Tarantino was supposed to do 10 movies and then retire. I don't know if this is the 9th or the 10th. It's hard to find a lot online about it, but it depends on how you count them, I guess. Regarding the movie, it's kind of the typical cadre of interesting actors in a Tarantino movie. He has both A-list actors, and there's actors in there that make you kind of go, I forgot that person was an actor, and what happened to them? So regarding the actual characters, Tarantino in this movie mixes real life individuals from the 60s, and this movie takes place in 1969, and he also mixes in these fictional characters. The story or plot, which kind of loosely follows kind of a 3-act structure, pretty much follows an actor played by Matt Damon, and not Matt Damon, Leonardo DiCaprio. I don't know why I typed that.
Yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio. Sorry about that.
Sorry, Matt. Sorry, Leo.
Yeah, they're kind of the same person. Anyway, not really. No, I'm sorry. So Leonardo DiCaprio, he plays Rick Dalton, who at one point had a lot of TV fame, but is now becoming less relevant in Hollywood, and he really does struggle with that. And we're also introduced to his stunt double, and that's Brad Pitt in the movie, and he plays Cliff Booth, who is also a friend and kind of a assistant, and drives him around everywhere because Rick had lost his license because of DUIs. And anyway, as Tarantino does with these two guys, life happens and we observe. That's kind of this movie. So it's set in 1969 Los Angeles. And that's a character unto itself. And this movie is 1969 Hollywood. And Rick Dalton starred in a TV show called Bounty Law, which didn't really exist.
Sort of like the Bonanza type.
Yeah, Bonanza and Maverick, the
Rifleman.
TV show. Yeah, Rifleman, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And why don't we stop right there for a second, and you tell me how you felt about it, and I'll tell you how I felt about it, and then we'll kind of pick it apart.
All right. Loved it and hated it.
Okay.
Let's start with the highlights.
Okay.
Brad Pitt, freaking sensational.
Right.
Man, the only movie that I can think of that I liked him any better was when he was the Pikey. What was that?
Snatch.
Snatch. Yeah. I thought he was better in Snatch, but only by a small amount. Okay. Every scene, that guy steals the scene. And he didn't have to say anything or do anything. He's like the quintessential movie star.
He's very casual in the way he works.
And that's powerful on screen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I can't remember where it was in the movie. I think it was early on in the movie. He was just driving around. Right. I think he had just dropped off Dalton, and he was driving around. And, they just had the camera in the passenger seat, and he was driving. And it was just it was interesting just to watch the dude driving, which is weird. Right. But it was good. And then DiCaprio, holy crap, dude. I don't know. Did he win anything for that?
I don't know.
He should have if he didn't.
He was great.
I mean, amazing. Right. Good, solid acting. And I would have to say, because we've seen him in so many other movies, the director has to have something to do with that, right? I mean, Tarantino got the most out of that guy. And it was awesome. Yeah. So without question, in my mind, those two guys were stellar.
Sure. And I will say, I agree with that. So a little bit about them, and only through my research, Tarantino, just like with a lot of his projects, he worked on this for years and years and years. He had lots of different ideas, and took a little while before we got what we got. He actually wrote a book that's a companion to this. He originally, or one of the original ideas, was Kurt Russell's in this movie, and Kurt Russell had a relationship with a stuntman that was similar to the relationship that these two characters had. He had a stuntman that basically he would show up and say, "This is my stuntman." For Death Proof was the movie that Tarantino was kind of first, and he was like, "That's an interesting relationship these two have." So I do agree that both of these individuals. Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio were just so powerful in it. Like with Leonardo DiCaprio, I just loved the way he approached this actor, and it really made me nostalgic for a time that I never lived in. Like I would love to have been during this time. I've been a 20-year-old during this time, and he.
In what way?
Because. It's simple. A little simpler time. Individuals like both of these individuals are so well rounded. They're not heroes. They're not villains. They seem to run in between. They're very, very human individuals. Very and like going on to the Brad Pitt character Cliff. He's not a good guy. He's not a. We can debate whether or not he killed his wife, but let's just assume he killed his wife. Okay, he, she was henpecking him. She shot. There's that scene where he's got the spear gun pointed at her. Yeah, and now she's gone. What the hell else happened? Right? What else happened? Yeah,
that's a little riff on Natalie Wood, right?
Yeah, or something. Yeah, so killed his wife. He doesn't really. Doesn't take anything from anybody. He's very chaotic in the way he approaches life,
but super confident.
Oh, and that's one of the positives. So again, he's
supremely confident.
He's not, and honestly, he's looking out for the little guy.
Yeah,
all the way through the movie. That's why he gets in the fight with Bruce Lee, because he's kind of like that. This guy is arrogant. He needs to be taken down a notch. But the Rick Dalton character. He approaches acting like a plumber approaches, his job or something like that, and he wants to be the best at it as possible, right? There's that scene where he's meeting with Schwartz in the bar at the beginning, and he's humbled by the compliments that this guy's paying him. He doesn't even think, you can kind of tell the character doesn't even feel that he deserves such praise for these movies that are kind of B movies, like the 14 Fists of McCluskey or something like that. But he accepts it, and he's glad, and I'm going to digress just for a second. Anytime I watch a Tarantino movie, I always watch it the first time with a little bit of trepidation. I'm like, what is going to... Ever since Pulp Fiction.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're like, what?
Okay, yeah, let me buckle my seatbelt here.
Yeah, something may go off. And for better or for worse, it never happened. Well, it does. It does in this movie. But there's lots of moments where you're like waiting for the gimp to come out. And it doesn't. And you're like, oh, okay. But then you watch it again, and then you start watching it to kind of be like, well, what did he do here? What did he do here? What did he do here?
Right.
So I noticed this like the second or third time, like Rick Dalton's got a stutter. He's actually got a stutter, and that just occasionally pops up. But when he's acting, he suppresses that. And I know you and I talked about that one scene briefly where he does that long scene with Timothy Olyphant, and then he and it's a long scene, like no cut. And then suddenly he loses his line, and he goes into his trailer.
He's all pissed off at himself.
And he's so angry. He's like talking about wanting to kill himself because he had made that mistake, because his craft wasn't perfect. And I remember watching that and afterwards thinking, oh my God, if TV Westerns were that good back then, I need to start watching TV Westerns from the 50s and 60s.
They weren't.
Yeah, I know. Well, even the scene with the little girl afterwards.
Yeah.
So that to me, that scene was because it was, because he does that scene with Luke Perry. And if anybody's not familiar, there's a scene where first, and just to kind of explain, he doesn't he's in a show called Lancer, which is not a real show. Oh, I hate to do this. Before we get too far along, I just said that Lancer was not a real television show, but shortly after Doug and I recorded this episode, I did find out that yes, Lancer was a real television show, and so correction issued. I will say this though, if I remember correctly, sometime in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it was mentioned that the DiCaprio character that he was playing in Lancer, this is supposed to be the pilot, but Lancer was actually a television series between 1968 and 1970, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood takes place in 1969, so maybe that's where the truth and the fantasy kind of diverge. Anyway, with that said, correction, Lancer, real television show, and I would definitely like to see it. I think they were doing a pilot, and he's acting with Timothy Olyphant. There's this long scene, and there's lots of casual racism in it and everything like that, because that's the way it was back then. The scene is very well acted, and he forgets one of his lines, and he has to get them to to cue his line. Yeah. And then it cuts to him in his trailer, and he's basically, just telling himself what a piece of shit he is and how he got drunk last night. And that's why his lines are all, and I thought he did a great job.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there was a scene where he, either before or after, where he interacts with the child actor, and the child actor is like all about her craft. It was interesting, I guess. And then he has a scene with her. And that was a freaking great scene, like where he's got the gun to the girl's head, and Luke Perry makes some comment like, kidnapping is a hanging offense, and he puts the gun to the little girl's head. He goes, also blowing the brains out of little girls, a hanging offense too. Can't hang me twice.
Yeah, can't hang me twice. Yeah. Well, let me jump in there and say that I'll disagree with you a little bit on the character.
Right.
The way I took it is prior to him sitting down. So just before this scene that Tony's talking about, where that big long scene where he forgets a line, he's walking around the set, and he sits down, and he sits next to that little girl. And I think up to that point, what I read into it is that he was an insecure actor, and he was not very proud of the work that he had done previously. And then he sat down and talked to this little girl, and she said some things to him that totally gave him validation for being an actor. And I don't remember exactly what the conversation was, but she was unusually confident in her craft, right? And she was very matter of fact about how important it is to be an actor, and how she takes her lines seriously, and she studies and all that stuff. And I think it was right after that they did that big long scene, and her words were echoing in his head when he was so pissed off at himself. So in other words, he got a little reality check from that little girl, and then he delivered that scene with her, was sort of the typical stereotypical Hollywood wrapping itself up type of scene. That's how I saw it.
I don't know. I think he brought a skill set,
for sure. Yeah, absolutely. But I'm talking about the self-confidence part, where he was at.
I don't, and if it was, I think it's more or less that not her, she didn't intentionally like push his buttons, but I think that she was talking to him about the paperback he was reading, and it was about an individual that had was now past his prime, and he kind of saw himself as that.
So to me, that was a little too on the nose.
Sure.
That was too obvious.
Right.
But the things that she said about herself, and how hard she worked, as respect to the other actors and all that kind of stuff, I think that's what hit home to him as in that character.
Yeah.
And that's what changed him, and that's how I saw that scene.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought. I don't know. I'd have to go back and try to watch it through that lens. And the reason why is I do know, like when she commented to him and said, that's the best acting I've ever seen. I just think that like shocked him. You know what I mean?
So I think the reason it shocked him is that he gained a great amount of respect for that little kid and her insight and her maturity.
Right.
What was she, 9 or something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden he had the scene with her, and then he gets a compliment like that from the kid that opened his eyes.
Right.
It just happens to be a child, but it was like the person that opened, just like a mentor kind of,
Yeah.
That's how I saw it. Because I tell you what, this is one of the things that made me think he did such a good job in this movie, because up to that point in the movie, I didn't really like that character.
Right.
I didn't like him. I felt like he was insecure, and he was like, such a stereotypical Hollywood, you got to make me feel better kind of guy. And then he went through that, and then he was confident from that point forward. And to sell that to me as the viewer was great. Yeah. I thought, that sold me on the fact that, like, okay, this guy's killing it, man.
I'd have to go back and watch it. I think he always had I don't know. I looked at it more like he always had this skill set. I think his conversation with the girl, I think it did kind of trigger things with him. And again, this conversation right here, this is kind of why I like Tarantino. We're not going like, do you think Iron Man?
It's not simplistic, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think Iron Man really didn't like Thor?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So the man, that Thor guy.
Yeah, he's such an egomaniac.
No, but I think that's a reasonable insight. I think you probably get I have to go back and watch it again, which I will. So
well, I couldn't see. So there's another scene. Just spoiler alert. There's another scene where he goes out and yells at some hippies with a pitcher full of margaritas at midnight.
Yeah,
he never would have did that prior.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't think so. I don't think he would have done that. I don't know.
Dude, I think he's.
See, I think that's the character arc.
I think that's. I don't.
Maybe.
I'll disagree.
Yeah, well, so it's perception, right? It's
because
interpretation.
I think he is the kind of individual that he had ego in certain situations. I think if he was around individuals that were, you know, his mentors or individuals that he was subordinate to, he was meek. But I think there's that scene at the beginning where him and Cliff are driving out, and there's those hippies over to the side of the road, and I want to be clear.
I want to talk about that.
I want to be clear. We, you know, the hippies may be considered derogatory. That's what this is. This movie is about.
About the hippies.
About the hippies. Yeah. And so he goes like, "God damn motherfucking hippies." I don't think he would have had any problem getting out of the car and freaking yelling at those guys.
But he didn't.
No, but he did not. I mean, yeah,
but he didn't. So that's we're guessing.
If they had done anything, if they had an old noisy Edsel, he would have. I don't know. I don't think that. But anyway, that's my opinion.
Okay, let's change direction for a second.
Yeah.
This is one of the other things I really liked about this movie, and that is it seeps Quentin Tarantino in the camera work. And now I don't know. I didn't do any research in terms of who did the camera stuff,
right,
as compared to any of his other movies, but. And that particular scene, just before, so he's Cliff's driving him around, and what's in the Cadillac or something? That big,
Cadillac.
Being a big white Cadillac.
Yeah, I think
to drive.
yeah, it's like a.
And you know, so in the 70s, of course, that was the shit. That was the car to have, you know.
Right.
And
60s.
So, yeah, 60s. That's what I meant. Yeah. So just prior to this, we see the girls dumpster diving. Right. They're looking for food. So you know they're hippies and whatever. And so this big white Cadillac with the movie star in the back rolls up to a stop sign, and the hippie girls walk across in the crosswalk. And that camera move that cuts between the viewpoint from in the car watching the hippies cross the crosswalk to the reverse angle looking at Brad Pitt. You could watch that and you would know, guarantee you know that's a Quentin Tarantino movie. And you and I talked a little bit about that last night, and then I watched something else. Anyway, I watched something else and I saw a really similar camera move. Not even close. Not even close. And maybe it's a stylistic choice that I particularly like the style, the way he did that. But it's so freaking identifiable. And every other camera move, it's just a slide. That's all it is.
Right.
And I don't know if it's the depth of field that they're using or the eye line that they make the actors do. It's perfect every single time. Tarantino, and they did it in Pulp Fiction.
Right.
I don't know how he nails that damn thing every time, and it is so good.
Well, that's one thing about Tarantino movies anyway, is that you can watch them for the story and you can be happy, you know, or there's the story, and under there's a lot of symbolism, you know, like Pulp Fiction. I watched a video one time where it was maybe a 45-minute, 1 hour video where somebody picked apart the first 15 minutes of Pulp Fiction where Travolta and Samuel Jackson go up and shoot those kids. Not even entering the door, but even just walking up.
Yeah. We should have shotguns for this kind of deal.
Yeah, and they're talking about the foot rub, right? Yeah. And the way the camera moves, and sometimes you wonder if the person that's analyzing it is projecting, saying. But the other thing is, I don't know, because Tarantino does things, you know.
But something makes it that freaking good. Yeah. What is it? That's what I'm saying. I know a lot about the technical side of that stuff and how they make those things, but I can't. It's magic, dude.
It is.
I don't know what it is that he does. It's freaking magic.
To me, if I were to say the one thing that I put when it talked about Tarantino, one thing I put above all is his dialogue. I mean, the way he crafts the conversation.
Yeah. So I don't know. I look at that as weird, man. I look at that as, because I'm with you. I love it, but it's also, to me, it's very 12-year-old.
Yeah.
But somehow it's sophisticated on top of that.
I don't know. I don't know what you mean by 12-year-old.
Well, so he drops an N-word left and right, right? And it's very immature and it's just like fart jokes, you know what I mean?
Right.
But somehow there's a level of sophistication that's layered on top of it that kind of makes it work.
Yeah, I don't know, yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's so I watch any other movie and they do that and I'm like, cheesy, but I don't get that reaction from Tarantino's movies, and I don't know why. I really don't. This is the part that
he gets the most out of an actor, and if they're good actors or great actors, he gets a lot out of them. He really does.
And DiCaprio is a great example of that.
Sure,
in this movie.
or another great example is Travolta in friggin' Pulp Fiction. Man,
absolutely.
I mean, here's a guy who
he was nowhere.
He was nowhere. Does Pulp Fiction, gets a little flame, and does Battlefield Earth, and gone again.
How fast can you tank your career?
I know. It's like what? I mean,
hey, Tony, we're off topic again. What do you know?
Oh, I know. Anyway, so what else did you? Was there other stuff you liked?
All the hippies. All the hippies were great in that movie. All of them. Super good. Yeah. Set design. I thought the set design was amazing.
It's
in that
like
movie.
I said, that was a character unto itself.
Yeah.
It is so clear
that
so it's a love letter to Hollywood. Like that's not mine. That's what everybody says. And it's a love letter that a lot of people could give a shit about. Yeah. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. But there's no green screen in this movie.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was good. The sound. I'm not talking the music, like Tarantino's famous for that, using cool music and stuff.
Which he did.
And he did do that in here, but I'm talking about the actual sound. And I noticed this in Maverick too. So maybe that's becoming a more prevalent thing. I know they've always paid attention to sound. They pay the sound guys a lot of money, and they craft it and all of that. Right. But for some reason, it seems to me like sound is getting a lot better in movies, and it's the clarity and the natural. This is a crappy word, but the naturalness of the sound that's in the film. Right. A lot of times, especially I'm thinking about movies from the 80s, it's too quiet outside of the dialogue and stuff. If there's no soundtrack, if they're like just somebody walking around the house or whatever, right? The sound is not real. It doesn't sound and feel like it's natural. And I don't know. In the last two movies we've done, this and Maverick, I thought it was both super good. Music, of course. Great. Right. And then I already talked about the camera, how good the camera work was.
Yeah, he seems to find music for his movies that they're not deep cuts, but they're not the most popular cuts either. They're right there in the middle, like where you're like, oh, I love that song, and I know that song was popular.
Yeah, Steelers Wheel.
Big time. Or Son of a Preacher Man and Pulp Fiction, things like that. So what did you not like?
Okay, here we go. The story.
Okay.
Really? Like, I don't even. It's hard to express.
Did you not? You didn't like the fact that it took place during the Manson murders? Is that what you're saying, or the fact that he changed the history?
Yes, that's what I don't like. That he changed the history, and I think my opinion is probably not very different than a lot of people's, in the fact that in some ways that was disrespectful, right, to Tate and all the rest. But what bugged me was, I don't know. It's like a story. You get this really cool, complicated story, and at the end, the guy wakes up and it was all just a dream. That's what this was like to me. Like, I know the history of that incident, so I'm watching it. I didn't realize, like I said, I didn't see very many trailers. I didn't know that that's what it was about until he went up and they met Tex at the ranch. And then I started to put it together. Like, oh, this is the Manson thing, right? And then when the hippies drove up, and he went out there and yelled at him with that freaking picture of margarita, which I thought was a great scene. Right. I'm thinking like, oh shit, man, this is about to go down. Right. And then when the hippies walked up, I noticed right away that they walked up the wrong driveway. Right. And so I was thinking like, that's weird. And then all of a sudden they go into Brad Pitt's place, and I'm thinking like, bullshit, man. Right. And then that was it. You lost me at that very point, because there's great building of tension. There was all of that stuff was great. And then all of a sudden, it's not what kind of was meant to be, in my opinion, for the whole lead up of the movie. And then I loved the scene, Brad Pitt and all of the way that he dealt, all that stuff was cool, but it was like two different movies for me,
Okay, so my thoughts, and not that it justifies it. I will say that Tarantino did check with the Tate family before he made it. He's like, "This is my plan."
Awesome.
Yeah. So which is again doesn't change it, but it is he did have concern that it would be viewed that way, and even though Sharon Tate clearly can't comment on it, but he did he did try to cover it. I think ever since Inglourious Bastards, you just kind of know that Tarantino's capable of doing things like this, where he's going to take history and he's, like I mentioned with Last Jedi, they're subverting expectations that I think is a good thing and a bad thing. I was okay with it. Okay. It didn't frame the entire movie for me. I will say right now that if I were to stack this up in my Tarantino movies, okay, like what my favorites are, this would be third or fourth. Okay. This is where I would put Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is where I put Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Okay. And Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction 1, 2. And I'm going to go and take a controversial standpoint. I like
Hateful Eight.
Hateful Eight.
Yeah,
I love Hateful. I love Hateful Eight. Okay.
Yeah, I liked it better than this in terms of story. Right. I liked the acting in this better than any other movie he's made. Yeah. I thought Brad Pitt and DiCaprio just totally killed it in this movie.
Yeah. So Once Upon a Time in Hollywood would be third or fourth. It'd either be Hateful Eight or this one. But when I first watched it, it was probably lower. Mm-hmm. But the more I kind of revisit it, the more I like it. Kind of for the reasons I mentioned, where anytime I go into a Tarantino movie, especially now, I watch it with this kind of when are the wheels going to go off the bus? Not in a bad way. I mean,
when is shit going to come unglued?
We were talking yesterday about the GIMP scene in Pulp Fiction. You go back and watch that now, you're kind of like, this is funny. At the time, it was a what the fuck is going on, especially for my young brain at the time.
Yeah.
I was only 4. No.
Well,
Mom, should I be watching this? She goes, "You've had enough Blue's Clues. Shut up." Anyway,
to be fair, Tony's only 8 right now.
I'm only 8. Yeah, I'm very
in terms of
I'm like that
mental age.
I like your discussion about 8. I like your discussion about the girl. I'll have to go back and revisit that. But anyway, so I think is when we're talking about the Tate murders and Helter Skelter, and I know something that you even talked about your interest in that, but right when we're dealing with a Hollywood that doesn't exist, when we have like a Rick Dalton and a Bounty Law and actors and actresses that don't truly exist, and a fight with Bruce Lee that never really happened, and so forth. I was kind of aware that he was probably going to change things, or there was going to happen. I think the fact that that it did end the way it did, and we'll touch on that in a minute because it is something, but he changes history, is in the title, in that this is a fairy tale. This is a fairy tale, right? And I also think that he looked at what happened with Sharon Tate and Jay Sebring and Jay Sebring, was that the guy's name? Yes, and so forth. The people that were murdered, he looked at that such a travesty, and the fact that that Brad Pitt, curb stomped him and everything like that was his way of like getting some sort of maybe retroactive revenge on that horrible crime. And
that's a statement, yeah.
Yeah, and I do respect that, but I don't know. Let's go and talk about it.
Okay.
Let's go talk about the fact that what happens, for those that haven't seen it, is when Tex and who are the other Sadie and the redheaded girl come up to the house instead of going up the driveway for where Sharon Tate was, because Rick Dalton had attacked them or verbally accosted them. They decided they were going to go to Rick Dalton's house.
Yep.
Yeah. And so they go into Rick Dalton's house, and at the time, Rick Dalton was in the pool, just listening to some music. Listening to Red Baron. Yeah, that was funny.
It's a whole nother cool scene.
It was, but he's listening, and so he's got a headset, so I can't hear anything going on. They go in the house. Rick Dalton had smoked a cigarette laced with LSD, so he was tripping.
Rick Dalton, Cliff
Booth. Yeah, Cliff Booth. And recently, Rick Dalton had gotten married, and his new wife was in the house, and she was sleeping in the back bedroom. It was a very similar setup to the Sharon Tate situation, where they clearly weren't expecting anybody to come in the house.
Midnight.
Yeah. So they making a blender of margaritas at midnight, which is glorious.
Yep.
So they kick the door open, and Cliff Booth has got a pit bull named Brandy that he's got very well trained, and so he has an interaction with so Tex points a gun at him, and the girls come in and they're about ready to start murdering Cliff, and they pull the wife out of the bedroom and they're gonna murder them, and Brad Pitt's character is tripping. And but they have this dialogue. As a matter of fact, he points the gun at him and he makes the statement about "I'm the devil. I'm here to do the devil's work." That's what supposedly was actually said.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, Cliff.
So Brad Pitt points his finger gun
and he goes
back at him.
I love, but some of the stuff he says is but it's so Tarantino. Because he had met Tex at the Spawn Ranch, which is another great scene.
Yeah.
And he says, "What's your name?" And he says something like, I forget. He goes, "No, it's stupider than that."
What's your name, Roy? No, it's stupider.
No,
than that.
Was it Rex
or something?
Tex, just kill him. Tex.
That's it.
Last time I saw you, you were on a horsey. So right before Tex shoots him, Cliff sicks Brandy on Tex, and then all hell breaks loose. And that was the point I was going to make. That to me, that may, you mentioned, the movie kind of lost you at that point. That kind of saved it for me, at least, because it was just that Tarantino shooting the guy in the back seat, the gimp getting out, the all that stuff, the shootout and Inglourious Bastards,
ultra violence.
Yes, and I'm going to say something controversial here in a minute, but he sicks Brandy on Tex, then he sicks Brandy on Sadie. And he's tripping, and then the I can't remember the redhead character's name. I don't have it on my notes, but she ends up getting thrown on Cliff, and her knife sticks into his leg, and I think this basically kind of maybe puts him over the top, but he assaults her.
It comes uncorked.
And he starts. Here's my controversial thing: we live in a world now where a 105-pound woman beats up a 220-pound man on a regular basis. Yeah. This is how it would really play out. Okay, this is how it would really play out if a 105-pound woman tried to attack a 220-pound strong man, because he
beats the living shit out of her.
He eviscerates her. Yeah. He takes her apart in the most just so violent way. But you can't help but to watch it and just kind of gleefully watch it. And then Sadie, who's still being torn apart by Brandy, she picks up a gun, fires off a shot. Brandy runs away, and then she goes out and crashes through the back, falls in the pool,
on fire.
Well, not on fire yet.
Oh, that's true.
She comes out. She's on fire yet, but when she falls in the pool,
she's bloody, screaming.
Rick, his headset falls off. She puts the gun in the air, fires off a round. And he goes into a tool shed where he keeps a flamethrower.
Yeah, from a previous movie that he had done.
Yeah, from 14 Fists of McCloskey, and lights her on fire with the flamethrower.
Tortures her ass. Yeah,
it's a great scene.
Yeah, so I got to say, so the whole that whole scene by itself, that was awesome.
It was.
I would say it was classic Tarantino. I loved it, but once again, I was disconnected from it at that point because
it wasn't the tape murders.
Well, I guess that's the simplest way to put it, but to me it was like a letdown. It was like, wait a minute, we've turned a corner. You know what I mean? And we've turned the wrong direction. That's how I felt. Okay. It's like that whole great awesome story. Guy gets married, has a beautiful wife, great car, great job, and he wakes up and it was all just a dream. He's still a bum. And it's like, what? None of that makes sense. Why would you even tell that story?
I don't know.
You know, that's how I took it.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that it was a fantasy. Fantasy that took place kind of in the. We had a foot in reality and a foot in fantasy, and I think he just did a great job of that 1969 Hollywood. So many things I loved about it. Like I said, time I would love to have been just around, and he was able to move back and forth between those two things, and to me, it just made sense, and that that all the stuff with Sharon Tate in there, where she goes and admittedly maybe a little.
Saw her movie, yeah.
Yeah, saw her movie. Maybe it was a little overly long, but she's this beautiful person. She is the princess of this fairy tale, right? Clearly, she is somebody that did not deserve to die. At least in this reality, I don't know, but she didn't deserve to die. She needed a knight in shining armor to save her, and it turned out to be Cliff Booth and Rick Dalton, even though they're not all that shiny.
They're somewhat buffoons, yeah.
Yes, and in the last scene, I know it's you're going to say a little ham-fisted or on the nose, but that whole scene where Cliff goes away in the ambulance, and I think that was a bit of a separation between those two. He goes off, and Rick, meets Jay and talks to Sharon over the speaker, which was another great set of dialogue, very short, but he's talking, but it was very funny, but not didn't try too hard. The gates open up, he goes through the gates, and he goes up to be with Sharon.
Right, a lot of symbology there. Because they show you the whole movie. They show you how tough Cliff is. He beats up freaking Bruce Lee, for Christ's sake. Then at the end of the movie, he gets taken away in an ambulance. So he's basically
done.
The story's over for him. Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think about that scene with Bruce Lee?
That was pretty funny.
It was good, yeah. I guess
it was good character development, for the Cliff character. I thought it was good character development because you get the point all along that he's a no bullshit kind of guy.
Right.
But then to beat up like supposedly the greatest fighter in the world, and that puts him over the top.
Well, it was,
but it's Tarantino-ish as well.
I liked that. You can kind of see the way his brain works too in that fight, because he's like, I'm going to let Bruce have the first pop and just see what he's like, and then I'll adjust. That was kind of a Cliff Booth thing, right? He lets Bruce get the first pop, and he's like, okay, I know how to adjust to this.
I'll make an adjustment.
I'll make adjustment, and he throws him into the Lincoln.
Yeah.
And I thought the Zoe Bell character was funny. The wife, how she hated him because he killed his wife.
Okay, so this is where I'm going to disagree with you. Yeah. I hated that character.
The Zoe Bell character.
I hated Kurt Russell in this.
Oh, did you?
It was a terrible.
Why?
Nothing about him and his acting or the character that I like. Right. I thought it was like 100% thick, cheesy. Yuck. I didn't like that. Yeah, no subtlety at all.
Well, I think I don't know. I mean, I'm not a guy who hires stunt teams.
Yeah, I get that.
But I mean, you needed. There was interesting choices that Tarantino made in that. There was things that they talked about, but there's also like the flashback, because that whole thing was a flashback. You know. By the way, Kurt Russell, one of my favorites.
Yeah, I like.
I love Kurt Russell. Yeah. But matter of fact, I'll go ahead and say, not a fan of Death Proof. The only thing I liked in Death Proof was Kurt Russell. Any scene where Kurt Russell had dialogue was amazing. Yeah, the guy's amazing.
Well, he was good. He was good in Hateful Eight, like that.
Oh, he was great.
Yeah. But so let's talk about this character for a second. Like, what did he add? What did he add to this film?
Oh, they need to move the story forward. They need to know why why he wasn't hired on. Remember the whole thing? He showed up for Lancer, and he was there.
Mm-hmm. So the only thing that Kurt Russell really did in this movie, in terms of a character, not Kurt Russell, but that character, was move the story forward and give a place, a location, for us to see Cliff beat up Bruce Lee. Right. That was it.
Well, and also now you had to go home, see Manson on the roof, had the flashback, but where that was that whole thing was a flashback with Bruce Lee, and then, but I will also say, and I think I've heard this criticism about this movie, and I don't necessarily disagree. It is kind of a Raiders of the Lost Ark in that nothing really happens, until you get to the very end, and that you like I mentioned in the intro, this is just a day. This is not a day in the life. This is just a time period where we're observing these characters. Lots of things happen in this movie that don't really
fit anywhere.
Yeah, fit anywhere. So
I was surprised, because I'm a Kurt Russell fan. I like him, even as Santa Claus. I thought he was good, but although that wasn't Tarantino, I love Tarantino to do a Santa Claus movie.
Dude, I heard he's thinking about doing a Star Trek movie. It's odd. It's so odd.
I'm not sure I'd watch that, but
I bet you would.
I would love to watch him do a Santa Claus, his take on Santa Claus.
Well, I understand why I would like to see him do a Star Trek movie is for the same reason, bro.
Which is.
Because it would be so off kilter. You think about the typical Star Trek movie.
I think maybe the reason that I say that is because I'm not a big Star Trek fan, and most of it would be lost on me.
Certainly,
Yeah, but there's probably a big element of that in this movie because I can't stand. One of the things I really hate about Hollywood is how self-appreciative it is. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we're great, we're actors.
Oh, it's very.
And same thing happened when Dalton's talking to that young girl. They're talking about the importance of being an actor. Like, you know what? Screw you. Go build something. Go fix somebody's plumbing. Then you're doing something important. But that's just my take on life.
Well, that's an interesting point because I do think in a way that's what moved Rick Dalton forward.
I understand that.
Is that he looked and I don't think he thought that it was the most important thing. I just think that he was, and we've kind of split this out. You think might be different, but I always think that the guy I think he always looked at his craft. He always was like, this is my craft. This is what I do. Some people build rocking chairs.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, are plumbers. Some people are air conditioner repair guys. He didn't look at this. And I think that's a real problem with Hollywood now is your craft, your ability to do a job doesn't give you credence, doesn't give you an area of expertise any place else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like if I was an actor, if I was a dishwasher repairman and I went to an actor's house and that guy and some actor was standing behind me telling me how to repair the dishwasher, I would tell him to shut the fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, same for everything else in our world nowadays. Mm-hmm. Actors feel like they need to force their, but I don't think that wasn't this guy. This guy.
Yeah, I see that. I see that. But again, back to that scene with the little girl. My only point is that I think that he probably thought that and felt that and all that stuff, but on somewhat of a superficial level. Mm-hmm. And for whatever words that girl said at this particular vulnerable time for him, it stuck. It rang the bell for him, and he was like, "Oh shit." And so
I got to go back and watch it.
Yeah, because he was so uncomfortable sitting next to her. He's trying to read his book, and he couldn't read his book, and he kept on, because he was like attention seeking almost sitting next to her. So anyway, so the last point I want to make on this is that I think that you keep announcing your controversial statements, so I'll announce mine. I think this will be somewhat controversial for all 6 people that ever listen to this. I think Tarantino took advantage of his position in this film by doing what he did to change the history and all of that stuff. Now, you could argue that he did that in Inglourious Basterds as well, but I would say that was probably a little bit of a different scenario. But maybe not. Maybe it's the same. But I feel like he has such power, and he can kind of do anything he wants in Hollywood, just about anything he wants. And he chose to do this. And now, again, I didn't do any research. I have no clue what his intention was, but the way it came off to me was he was taking advantage of his situation and kind of like drawing you in with a horrific event and then not doing that horrific event any justice. That's how I saw it.
I guess.
And I don't think he's a bad dude, so he probably didn't mean it that way, but that's how it came across.
Well, I don't. Well.
Clearly, if he checked with the Tate family, I mean, that's just what you're telling me. Then he clearly has respect, right? Yeah. And it's not an issue where he's like, "Hey, screw all you guys! I'm going to change the way things happen." And I don't think that's the way it felt when I was watching it, but I don't think that was his intent. Yeah, which is maybe part of my disconnect.
A couple thoughts. Thoughts. If Tarantino wants to go in a direction, I'll go with him. You know what I mean? Like if he decides that this is something that I like he says, when he takes, I think he said take advantage or he has opportunities because of what he's delivered and people give him opportunities to. That's fine because he's got 9 movies. Those 9 movies, even the worst one on that list, which I'm sure both of us have opinions on that. Still better than a lot of what's out in Hollywood. If you watch it, there's still his worst efforts are still pretty damn good. The other thing is I think what him doing the change up. I think there's been lots of exposés and documentaries and movies and so forth on the Tate murders. For him to go at it again, or if he would have taken it in that direction, I don't know if that would have added anything to the conversation. I think with him doing what he did, and flipping history he now does since Inglourious Bastards. I can understand your point, but I'm also like, I kind of get why he did it. He just wanted to bring something new to the discussion, and also the way he did it, the way he full throttle Tarantino did it, it kept me hooked and interested. So
the only disagreement I'd have with that is that I agree that he brought something to the conversation,
right?
But was it valuable?
I don't know. I think it was entertaining.
It's okay. So, on an entertainment level, I agree with you.
Yeah.
But again, going back to that conversation with the little girl, this is the part in the movie where they say, "Hey, it's an important role to be an entertainer in life, right? We bring people joy,
right,
or emotion, or whatever." Same discussion. You and I have talked about this so many times with music and whatever else. So, if you believe that, then you need to bring something that actually adds.
Well, maybe,
and then to bring something that's maybe the only thing it adds is a different perspective, and I could give him that. And then this is just me, and it's all subjective. But I don't think I think he took away rather than added.
Maybe what he added, maybe what he gave was in his world, in this fantasy world that all of us were allowed to come into. He gave Sharon Tate the beginning of a future that she really deserved.
Okay, that's poetic.
Thanks.
Did you write that?
No.
Okay.
I said it. I know. I don't know. I think,
okay.
I mean, I don't think it's
so that's the first argument that I've heard about this that I would buy.
Okay.
I would buy that. And again, so knowing what we know about Tarantino, being fans for so long, I would say that if you had to guess what his mindset was, it was probably something along those lines,
sure.
if not that exactly.
I don't think I did not hear that. I'm sure my thought, that thought isn't unique.
You're gonna go back and listen to that later and go like, holy shit, I'm smart.
Gotcha. Almost
for the first time in your life.
Almost a whole hour. And that's
whatever.
So, but and then I said, booger. No, hey, so real quick, we're coming up pretty quick here. I also want to ask you what your thoughts were on the whole Spawn Ranch scene with Brad Pitt.
That's freaking amazing.
It was. Did you like when he beat up Clem?
Yeah, that was awesome. But you know what I liked? And again, my whole thing with entertainment, I don't care if it's movies, music, books, whatever, is you got to hook me, man. You got to, I want that suspension of disbelief. That's what I'm after.
Right.
Because that's what makes it fun, right? We leave our world and we go into your world. And in that particular scene, I was sucked in, man.
Oh, my God.
Because especially in that scene where he's standing there talking to old Dakota, Squeaky.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm coming in there and this screen door's not going to stop me.
Again,
I mean, it's like,
he is that Brad Pitt character in Hollywood was a force of nature.
Yes.
He just was.
Yes.
But nobody was aware. Just like Bruce Lee found out. And I love the Bruce Lee scene because at the time, again, the what's her, I can't remember her character's name, but the Zoe Bell character was like, you don't need to be beating up on her star. And Bruce Lee was like, nobody was beating up on me. And it's like, dude, you got thrown into a Lincoln.
You got your ass kicked.
I mean, you got tossed into a Lincoln. By the way, super nice Lincoln.
Yeah,
just FYI.
Exactly.
I can't believe they damaged it. Yeah.
But the whole scene at the ranch was great.
It was, but
I'm not sure that I don't know how I feel about when he finally got inside and woke up. What's his name?
Spawn.
But leading all the way up to that. I mean, walking down the hall, the way they shot that, the
rats
pacing.
Stuck in the
Well, I kept waiting for something to happen.
Oh, I know.
You kept waiting. Somebody's going to jump out and somebody's going to get him, and then nothing happens. He wakes up an old dude.
Yeah, you're waiting for the get moment. You're waiting for, and not only did he wake up the guy was like, no, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I mean, he
what
wasn't
are you doing
fine.
Here? Who are you?
He wasn't fine.
But I mean,
but what was he going to do?
Yeah, exactly. No. Anyway, so cool. So I mean, in terms of Tarantino films, it was totally Tarantino film.
Right.
Without question.
Had lots of lines in there, like
tons.
Again, I mentioned earlier, like the casual. There's kind of casual racism, like remember when they come out of the restaurant and he's Rick Dalton starts to cry, and Brad Pitt was like, "Not in front of the Mexicans."
Yeah, don't let the Mexicans see you cry. Yeah. And what was that line? What was that line with it when he picked up the chick and she was offering him sex or something for money?
Yeah.
What did he say? He said something like,
wasn't for money, but he says, I know. So you talking about when what was her name? What was it? Pussycat? something like that.
Yeah.
Was the name of the character?
Yeah.
And he was like, "How old are you?" That what you're talking about? And he said something like, "I'm old enough to realize that I don't want to go to jail for like a blowjob or something like that." Yeah. So
I'll go to jail, but I'm not going to go to jail for you, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And then because there's all kinds of and this movie does fall in that show don't tell type of framework. Even though you have Kurt Russell doing some narration, but like there's the scene on the boat where he probably killed his wife. He talks about breaking the cop's jaw.
But you can't do that without that. Like, you can't do flashbacks without some kind of narration, because you got to explain to the audience what the hell you're seeing. You know what I mean?
The narrations were very clipped. They're really well done.
Absolutely.
It's a movie I went ahead and bought it on streaming. I'm glad I did. I'll go back and watch it.
All right, 1 to 10.
Oh, it's a 9 for me.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm at 7.
Okay, that's cool. It's still good.
Yeah.
And that's maybe even like a 7 in the world of Tarantino, right?
It's a 7 Tarantino world, which is a 9 in everybody else's world.
Right, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah. How long have we been going here? We'll probably call it there. I was going to say we could probably rank our Tarantino movies.
Oh, shit, dude, we could talk about Tarantino for days.
I think this is going to be a gateway Tarantino thing. Yeah. We'll probably revisit Tarantino at a later time. So I wouldn't mind going back and talking about Hateful Eight, because I don't think that's most.
I'd have to rewatch that, because I did watch it, and I think I was interrupted, and I watched it in 2 stages. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I have to go back and rewatch that.
And they actually. Tarantino does go long with a lot of like I mentioned in this movie.
Just like you and I.
Yeah, though there is the scene where Sharon goes into the movie theater and she's watching a movie, which I thought that was interesting that they used the actual movie.
My favorite part of that?
What's that?
Her dirty feet.
That's what everybody says about Tarantino. He likes feet. I don't know if he does or not.
I like the fact that they were dirty.
Yeah.
And that was, I remember that flashed me back to our childhood when I walked around barefoot all the time.
That's what somebody said, because I was going through posts, and people were like, "Oh, Tarantino has a foot fetish," and some person said, "No, in the '60s, people went around without shoes on all over the place." Yeah, that was just the way it was. He captured that, especially the women in the dumpster. That's just the way it would have been.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting they used clips from our actual movie, because there were other things where they showed other people that were and they for example, when Rick was talking about starring in The Great Escape, and they didn't show the Steve McQueen clip, they showed they did some sort of stuff. Anyway, all right, so before we go, we're going to do one recommendation. Do you have a recommendation that you would like to share with us?
Man, I didn't think about this. You go first, and then I'll come up with something.
Oh, okay. So last time I talked about the 2 that I liked, but I'm going to go and give you one this time. I'm going to recommend a TV show. Okay. We're going to really switch it up here. I recently watched Severance on Apple TV Plus. That came out back in February of 2022. If you haven't watched, this is I know Doug is binging through Westworld right now.
Thanks, shithead. That was going to be my recommendation.
You can still recommend it if you want. I think most people know about it.
Okay.
But so Severance is if you don't have Apple TV, find somebody who does Apple TV and borrow their password.
That's illegal.
It's not illegal.
Okay.
So if it is,
Dude,
I think Apple can
go to jail. Call Tony for bail.
I gotta go to jail for that. The Apple TV police show up, and then they cancel somebody's membership. I don't think we're gonna. So
you just open the door, man. I can make so many jokes about that.
Anyway, so it's about a group of office workers, and I quote IMDb, whose memories have been surgically divided between their work and personal lives. Once divided, their previous memories are maintained with their personal self. However, their work self, which while fully functional, has no memory of their formal self. It's like they have amnesia. I recommend it, again, talking about Westworld, because of its twisty nature of the story, and it, it's, but like I said, compared it to Westworld, but it ends with the twistiness. It's not about a Westworld. It stars Adam Scott, who was in Step Brothers and The Good Place and things like that, and also you got John Turturro in it, Patricia Arquette.
I love him.
Yeah, and my favorite, Christopher Walken, is in there too.
So he's good too.
Yeah. Also, it's Ben Stiller is the executive producer, and he directs 6 of the 9 episodes, and there is going to be a season 2. Great show, super twisty. Again, it's about that whole separation of work and personal, but there's lots of mystery and so forth. So highly recommend it.
All right. Well, since you burst the bubble on Westworld, we're going to do a whole. That's right. We're probably going to do a whole cast on Westworld.
Oh, this season 1.
Yes, season 1. So I will recommend an older film. It's called Run Lola Run.
I remember that.
1998, and it's a German movie, and it's subtitled, so you'll have to deal with it. But it's kind of an experimental thriller kind of movie about a girl on the run. It's weird because they mix in a little bit of animation, sort of like The Wall. And so, yeah, I'm not going to say anything other than that. Run Lola Run. Sure, you can find it streaming somewhere.
Definitely.
Yeah, I thought that was a
80s or 90s?
98.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think so. Let me double check that. I think it was 98.
Probably. I just remember. Probably so.
Yeah, probably. Let's see. Run Lola Run. 1998 German experimental thriller film.
Nice. Yeah. So
written and directed by Tom Tykwer, whoever the hell that is. Look him up, IMDb.
Sorry if we butchered your name.
But yeah, sorry, Tom. But yeah, movie, fantastic. That was great. So.
All right, as always, thanks for spending time with us today, listening to this podcast. We really appreciate it.
Sorry, this one did go long.
It's a little long. It looks like we're clocking right at an hour. So email us, analogspectrum@gmail.com if you have any questions or you just want to tell us what you like or what you don't like. You can always tweet at us, same thing, at Analog Spectrum. You can always find us on Facebook, on our group, Analog Spectrum on Facebook. So always think about giving us a follow, share us with your friends, share us with your mates. We're always trying to grow our family. We don't want a huge following, but it would be nice to get to know as many of you as possible. And that's all I got. Everybody have a great day.
See you next time. I think you should record that outro.
Yeah, I know.
And then just run them.
Drop it in.
Yeah.
I would have. Matter of fact, what I could, I'll do it next time. And also, one other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to.
Because you can just do it separate when I'm not even here if you want.
Yeah, I'll probably will.